Hi everyone, I'm Daniel McInnes and I'm the Shared Stewardship Coordinator with the U.S. Forest Service Southern Region out of our regional office in Atlanta. So shared stewardship is a strategy that integrates the agency's decision making with states and partners to achieve conservation and restoration outcomes at the landscape level. So as part of the agency's effort to steward the whole, the Forest Service helps convene the Keeping Forest Partnership. Keeping Forest is the Southern Region's high priority working forest conservation initiative that's supported by around 40 partners from across the forestry community. So forests really are our planet's hardest workers, right? They help drive our economy here in the South. They positively impact the physical and the psychological health of our communities. They help filter our precious water and air. They provide abundant habitat for wildlife, and they offer just a wealth of recreation opportunities. Over 110 million people and growing call the South home and depend upon the benefits that the roughly 245 million acres of forest land in the South provide. So we're incredibly fortunate in the Southern region to have a long history of landscape level assessments related to forests. It dates all the way back to the late 60s. These assessments look at how land use is changing and also the condition of our forests. The most recent assessment, which was developed by the U.S. Forest Service and the Southern Group of State Foresters, is the Southern Forest Futures Project, which was published in 2012. So the Futures Report forecast that we could lose up to 23 million acres of forest land to development by 2060. So Keeping Forest was started to address this potential loss of forest land, and the approach to conservation is radically different than the traditional approaches. So partners within the initiative, are a diverse range and include NGOs, industry, private landowners, federal, state, and local governments, water utilities, among others, but we all have a common mission, right? And that's to ensure that in 2060, we still have at least 245 million acres of forest land in the region. We're focused on systems level change using a collective impact model. And one of the best options for conserving forest land in the South, we believe, is to provide markets for private forest landowners because they own 86% of the forests in the region, right? So that's why Keeping Forest is presenting this webinar series on forest products. The partnership is looking for ways to expand the use of products from southern forests, going beyond consumer goods to include construction technologies and other things. And that's really so that private landowners can achieve their management objectives. They have the economic incentive to achieve those management objectives and to keep their lands in forests. So thank you for joining. And before we move on to our topic of the day, let's hear from a few of our Keeping Forest partners.
Hello, I'm John Mulcahy, Vice President of Stewardship at Georgia Pacific. Here at GP, we believe that the role of business and society is to help people to improve their lives. We do that by using forest products to create solutions that help people improve their lives by creating shelter, improving hygiene, offering convenience, extending shelf life, and protecting goods in transit. It's important for us to be good stewards of the natural environment and ensure that forests remain healthy and abundant in perpetuity. That's why we work with organizations like Keeping Forests, and we share their commitment to create the conditions that will help forests to grow, working with the landowners, ensuring that they have incentives to take care of their land and to replant after harvest.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam Cook. I'm here at NC State in the College of Natural Resources. I serve as the Executive Director of Forest Assets and our Vice President of the Natural Resources Foundation. We work to develop leaders and solutions for challenges impacting the environment, economy, and society. Our Sustainability Office was established in April of 2008 to serve as a centralized resource of sustainability information and action for our students, faculty, and staff. The mission is equipping the NC State community for a leaner, smarter, stronger future. Our vision is a cultural that creates leaders and sustainable solutions for global challenges. How does this fit into the mission of Keeping Forests? Since I explained earlier, we at Keeping Forests are a diverse coalition conserving the natural, economic, and cultural values of responsible managed southern forests. Through the power of collaboration, we are redefining the challenges of forest conservation in new, and compelling ways. I feel like this mission that Keeping Forests has provided is allowing us to be partners here at NC State in the outcome, because we can join together to make sure that this solution come true by 2060. Thank you for your time.
I'm Brian Dangler, Senior Vice President for the Conservation Fund's Working Forest Fund program. For the past 37 years, the Conservation Fund has been the leader in protecting America's working forests, lands, waters, and special places. As the nation's only conservation organization with a dual charter for both land and water conservation as well as compatible economic development, our work has always been about the conscious effort to include people in nature. That is how we at the Conservation Fund define sustainability. Can we conserve nature and society at the same time? Our Working Forest Fund program is specifically designed to permanently protect America's privately held large working forests. These lands have been assembled by the vertically integrated forest products companies over a century, and they're rapidly being sold off into smaller and smaller pieces, and eventually they will be developed, changed into different land uses. We've conserved about 1 million acres so far. We have a goal of conserving another 5 million in 10 years. We think permanently protecting large working forests for all the co-benefits they provide society is our nation's most urgent conservation priority. And it fits perfectly into the mission of the Keeping Forests Initiative.
When we put this together, we were thinking about how we wanted to name it, because we're very much very synergistic and aligned with a lot of the messaging that I see you all are doing in all your areas that you work in. And so I call it how choosing paper renews forests and creates a circle of care. And that's the whole, the recyclability and the ability to use material over and over, and that circular economy. So I'm not going to talk too much about that today, but I am going to talk with you a lot about the work that we're doing to communicate forests really robust and frankly wonderful story in terms of the kind of economy we enjoy here in the United States for forest products and want to continue to enjoy. And so we need to really make sure consumers know the right story about America's forests. All right, sorry. Okay, this is not. Sorry about that. See, that black box is back again. All right. So just a quick 40,000 foot on the checkoff. This is literally a more than $20 million a year campaign that is paid for by the manufacturers of paper and packaging. So I noticed Georgia Pacific was on your previous slide. John Mulcahy actually serves on our marketing committee. And Christian Fisher is president of AFMPA. And then Scott Light, who heads up their corrugated division, heads up the marketing committee for us. So they're very, very active as a company across the industry. And we're very lucky to have their leadership in our programs as well. What our board is really all about is communicating our environmental stewardship story, our well-established recycling practices, and product innovations that only use what we need and are designed to be recycled right from the beginning. There are 40 US manufacturers involved. I also noticed PCA was on the previous slide, and again, they're active in our program as well. So it's International Paper, it's Graphic Packaging, it's WestRock. So it's very big companies like those and some of the smaller manufacturers that are helping to fund this. As Leslie mentioned, we're 8 years in. The program was established in January of 2014, and I was hired almost 8 years ago this coming May. So it's been a great experience, and we've learned a lot. And I think we're really hitting our stride now in terms of understanding, where our messaging can play and work. The big news is that when we started the campaign, we were not as focused on sustainability as we are today. In 2014, while we saw some consumers had environmental concerns, we also saw that they had a lot of passion for the things that paper and packaging do. People were getting more and more into e-commerce back then, and were appreciating those boxes. And even with the digital, economy that we, all participate in with our phones and computers, et cetera, paper still was very, very resonant for people. It was a really important tool. And even though they weren't using as much of it, we wanted to make sure that people highly valued it when they did. So this has really been our focus up until now. And in 2021, we pivoted completely to an all sustainability campaign, consistent with the changes in the marketplace. It started in Europe, but have also hit us here in the US, and that is that people want to use more renewable materials. They don't want this single-use throwaway society when they can avoid it. And so our products have a very, very big, important role to play. And our companies said, we really need to tap into that right now because this has never been more important. The other thing I'll just mention in checkoff land is I'm sure a number of you are familiar with the Softwood Lumber Board, if not all of you. And I know Case DeJager, and we talk a couple times a year. And then I don't know if you know, but there's a Christmas tree promotion board as well. It's led by a woman, Marcia Gray. And then of course there's our program. So across the US government, and I know Softwood Lumber works very closely with the US Forest Service, and we're beginning to get to know those folks as we get deeper and deeper into this topic. There's quite a bit of industry presence, when it comes to promotional dollars to tell our story. So it's really beholden on us to tell it well. So the problem we're trying to solve with this move into sustainability is to really tackle consumers' guilt about two things. One is using trees to make paper and packaging products. We know we've done a lot of research, and it's no news to any of us in this industry that consumers love trees and they put them on a pedestal, but to the point that sometimes they just can't even fathom the idea of cutting them down. And we know that's not a very smart or good way to look at our products, our industry and our products, which we'll get more into. And they also feel a lot of guilt about waste when they cannot recycle. And so in order to create that stronger marketplace for paper and packaging, not just rely on current events and people's growing awareness of environmental concern, we want to get across that trees in the US are plentiful and grown at a higher rate than they are used. We also want people to understand that paper and packaging are recycled at the highest rate by far than any other material on the planet. And those two messages together really form the basis of our overall strategy. And that strategy is to build preference for paper-based products and to also solidify all the good reputational things that this industry does to be good stewards of the forest. And so, we are really looking then at two kind of key functions of the program. One is to make sure that people know that this is an industry that promotes healthy trees and habitats. That's really the reputation piece, and that recycling and product innovations from this industry all put the planet first. And when we can convey that, we'll build that favorable marketplace for our products through both reputation, people understanding the good work and the stewards that our industry is for the trees, as well as preference for paper-based materials over materials like plastics, for example. And if we do that, and we do that well, we are really addressing the core function of a checkoff program in the eyes of the government, which is to build consumption. Many checkoff programs get into the business of, let's say, milk and beverages when the industry's in trouble. And a lot of people will say, well, milk has not changed in terms of its consumption. But actually, in the eyes of our government, when we can really stem the decline, and that was really the goal on the paper side, to stem the decline in paper use, then we are making an active, contribution to consumption. And so in our case, it's not so much that You know, we want to use more and more trees, though we think that's very beneficial, but it really has to do with, again, moving consumers towards a more sustainable, environmentally alternative to plastic materials in particular. And so we talk about this in a very simple way. Oops, sorry, I'm trying to get this thing to disappear. Oh, it's not behaving, I apologize. So we really have evolved that strategy into two simple, what we call pillars. One is, again, that naturally abundant resource that is renewable, responsibly managed, and plentiful. That is the story that we are working on telling here in the United States. And that our products are all about less waste, because not only, again, are they earth friendly, but they're easily recyclable. And so these are messages that consumers, we see in our research, can relate to and identify, but we have to get through some of the myths and the baggage that people still have from campaigns from years ago. And so, oops. So we created a new campaign in 2021 that is really about, to the consumer, call to action of be a force for nature. When you choose paper and when you choose paper-based packaging, you're really doing your part for the environment. And so we've done a lot of work in that space to figure out how to really best tell that message. And we launched a fully integrated campaign this past July, where we have advertising, both video and our cycle of care, our circle of care print ad. We have a very rich and robust website, Choose Paper for Nature, which is on our How Life Unfolds broader site. And then we've got some box promotions that we're in the process of getting out into the field, where consumers can get reminded on the box, hopefully on an upper flap, that when they recycle, these boxes have many, many lives. And we've been promoting what we call our Faces of the Forest. We have 8 different videos from mills and forest areas all over, wood baskets all over the country to help tell our story. So the first thing I'll share with you is one of, again, several stories that we've been promoting largely through social media and through digital advertising that has our foresters, your friends and your family, telling the forest story. This is just a this is about a 1.5-minute clip. It's a much longer piece, but I just want to give you a sense for the richness of the story.
My name is Avis Gray, and we are in a city called Windsor, North Carolina.
My name is Jordan Gray. I am a student at UNC and a part-time forest trainee.
This land was actually purchased by my great-great-grandfather. He bought the first acreage in our family. Because of external manipulation, financial hardship, bad decision-making sometimes, we lost a lot of it. My grandfather decided to give me the property a few months before he passed away. And that's where this whole journey began. We also grow corn, we grow soybeans, and we have a small herd of cattle. And of course, we have our pine trees for income that will come long term. We got 67 acres. On each acre, we got about 438 trees. In 2011, when I inherited this property from my grandfather, it was basically just an untended brush field. But in 2014, we cleared the land, cleaned it up, and now we have young, beautiful pine trees.
So that gives you a little bit of an essence of the Gray family story. And her daughter is following in her mother's footsteps in terms of not only going to school, but also becoming a trained forester. So there's a lot more to their story. And we did that one about 2 years ago. and we have 7 other ones like it. So you can go to our YouTube site, How Life Unfolds, and type in Faces of the Forest, and all of these should pop up and be very accessible to you. When we started to do our campaign, our new sustainability, mission-focused campaign, we learned through our research very quickly that we needed to meet consumers with where they are. And consumers are extremely positive about recycling and really feel that it's almost a civic responsibility. It's something that they feel good about it when they do, and they feel like they're really making a positive contribution to the future of the planet. But what consumers didn't really understand is where does this recycling go and what does it become? And so that is the mission of this first piece of video that I'm going to show you, where we give consumers a sense of the many lives of fibers that can go on to become other things.
A box can be essential, then recycled for a move, and then help brighten breakfast, or bring fresh scents in a tube. What starts as a box for detergent can become one with a helpful seam. All part of the circle of caring for our natural resources and trees. Recycling your boxes and paper products helps nature thrive. Be a force for nature and choose sustainable, recyclable paper and packaging.
So what's really nice about this concept is it's working for the industry on many levels. It's conveying to consumer that their recycling goes on to become important other things. But the other thing is you'll notice that we had some innovative uses of packaging. So the paper-based laundry detergent box or deodorant in a tube. And so consumers are also then seeing and registering messages about plastic substitution, that our material can be used to make a whole host of things that people are used to getting in plastic. And then we also know that the way we close out the commercial talking about the forests and the habitats is a really positive nod to forestry that consumers understand and appreciate. So there's a lot of different layers to this, even though it's a pretty simple idea. And we were happily surprised at all the different ways that the commercial was educating consumers about things that they didn't know. This next ad I'm going to show you is it's 15 seconds. And we've been using 30 and more 15s because we push out a lot of stuff through social media. And even when people see our ads on television, they go to that website. They don't want to watch very long, drawn out things. They need the communication to be bright, entertaining, and short. And so we created this second concept in a 15-second commercial, really building on the whole e-commerce trend that it just totally accelerated, as we all know, during COVID. And so more and more consumers than ever are getting things delivered straight to their home. And this commercial is a nice reminder about the role that paper-based packaging, corrugated paperboard, et cetera, has in delivering these things that consumers need.
Paper and cardboard are the most recycled material, from delivery boxes to ones that hold cereal. So when you order online, you are doing your part to keep forest habitats thriving, showing nature some heart. Be a force for nature and choose recyclable paper packaging.
And so we've been supporting the video and the social that we're doing with print advertising. And we run in magazines, for example, like HGTV, Us Weekly, magazines for Men's Health, Rolling Stone. So kind of a diverse set of magazines that really appeal to the consumer target audience that we've identified for the campaign. And in those magazines, we partner with their editorial team to develop ads. Well, they're not ads, they look like editorial, but we pay for them like ad space. And so this is one that HGTV developed for us called Best Practices for a Sustainable Lifestyle. And it talks about everything from, that corrugated, home desk and stool to shipping boxes to file folders, et cetera. So it's just ideas on how to, again, incorporate paper-based solutions in your everyday life. Over the holidays, we took these really fun creatures that we had shared with you in the forest on a bright sunny day. And we said, you know, what could they do to tell our holiday story, that it's okay to use paper and paper-based products this time of year because they do have such a great sustainability story, they're recyclable, et cetera. So we produced this campaign with video and print ads that remind consumers that paper is the gift that keeps on living. It's that whole concept of, again, when you use paper-based products, you're growing more products for the future, given the industry always returns more volume, you know, back than is actually used. And that's another way that we grow forests. So here's a fun video, same creatures in the middle of winter with a fun holiday message.
Keep the tradition alive this holiday season with the gift that keeps on living. Because the paper products that make the holidays so special are the same products that help our forests grow. So enjoy the holiday cards and catalogs, savor the unboxings, and delight in the seasonal gift wrap. And to get even more out of our natural resource, simply recycle when you're done. Choose paper and packaging and be a force for nature.
We also did a lot with that message in social media and with a number of magazines where we were able to play off in our headline what magazine audience we were talking to, in this case, Rolling Stones. And so our Trees Are Classic Rock Fans Too was a nice way into a discussion with the fact that when we use paper and packaging, timber is used to make those products and they're replaced at a rate twice or volume at twice the rate they're used. And so again, trying to make that connection without over complicating it, that this use of our products helps encourage more forests and more growth. Very consistent, I think, with the messaging that you all are doing. And then again, just to let you know how we partnered with one of the print magazines over the holidays. This is Us Weekly, and Brittany was on the cover, so that was a good issue to be in. And we had a full page spread with an environmental gal named Leah Thomas, and she's been in Nat Geo and a lot of other sustainability related publications. And so she did a great piece for us again on how to be sustainable in your choices over the holidays. And of course, craft paper, things that you could wrap your products in. There are a lot of non-plastic alternatives. So she's talking a lot about, again, what's available to make your holidays both fun and sustainable. And frankly, then a lot less guilt-free to our consumers. And then we really have been trying hard to think about that younger end of the demographic. We know that in general, younger people feel a little bit more concerned and guilty about the environment. And so we've wanted to reach out to them in a way that they really could identify with. And so we partnered with some Canadian Indians, believe it or not, and they did this wonderful wrap for us that I think really kind of gets to the heart of, you know, how consumers feel about paper in particular. They don't want to be wasteful because they're worried about the trees. And so we try to talk with them in a fun wrap language to, you know, dissuade them of that thinking.
Everything we do is for the green, but we do it with ease. I got paper, you can say that it can grow on trees. We're serving Mother Earth, the chicks dig it too. We're recycling for life, see this all that we do.
Paper, it comes from nature, there's nothing greater. No need for haters, we'll deal with them all later. When we harvest the wood, we're thinking outside the box.
Planning notably more, kinda slide like a fox when produced and made in the US of A. Sometimes it's portrayed in a negative way. They want us to leave, but we'll never fall. Choosing paper for nature, we're ahead of y'all.
So again, very different way to convey that message that, again, when we are using paper and we're enjoying paper, we're actually, again, giving landowners reasons to, incentives to keep their forests as forests. Now, it isn't just enough to make a rap video and put some social behind it. We really want to put very buzzy social media. So we've been doing more and more in TikTok. And so we worked with a group called Not Enough Nelsons. It's a family of 18 kids. They weren't all in the video, but we had the Not Enough Nelsons do their own rap video about our rap video so we could promote it in TikTok. So I'll show you that.
Everything we do is
Oops.
for the green, but we everything we do is for the green, but we do it with ease. I got paper, you can say that it can grow on trees. We're serving by the earth, the chicks dig it too. We're recycling for life, see that's all that we do.
Paper, it comes from nature. There's nothing greater. No need for haters. We'll deal with them all later. When we harvest a wood, we're thinking outside the box.
Planning notably more, kinda slide like a fox when produced and made in the US of A. Sometimes it's portrayed in a negative way. They want us to leave, but we'll never fall. Choosing paper for nature, we're ahead of y'all.
What we enjoyed about this family is a big part of our message is to find venues where families can work together to recycle, because when it's a family affair, it's a more effective way to recapture materials. So we like that whole family aspect of this group, and it's had this video, the rap video, the original video I showed you, has had several million views on YouTube. So anyway, we're having a lot of fun with TikTok, and again, trying to reach consumers kind of where they're at and where they're getting their information. And TikTok is just an increasingly larger presence for a lot of younger people, and they watch it on their phone. And so wanted to show you some of our mobile efforts. So then moving into this year, we really wanted work that helped address people's concerns about paper, specifically about recycling and boxes and breaking them down. But we felt that we still had not really captured that forest story and that wonderful, story of, again, really a bright and sustainable economy here for forest products. And so that, again, nurtures the forest. So we started talking about, how can we get consumers to relate to it in a way that appreciates trees, but again, doesn't put it on such a pedestal so as to say, please don't touch them, don't cut them down. And so I'm going to share with you what our consumer testing material looks like. This is one of about a half a dozen ads that we haven't got the testing back on yet. But what we do for the consumer to test it is we tell them a little bit about what they're going to see, and then how it all rolls together in what we call an animatic video. And it's basically a test video to get consumers' impressions of the message and are they understanding what we're trying to convey to them. So I'm going to give you, I'm going to play a little video setup that the consumers in testing saw, and then the actual animatic.
This ad will be treated so that the final scenes, characters, and animals will all seem like they are part of the universe of an animated feature film. This reference frame should help you imagine how the final coloring and lighting will help draw attention to the featured products. These video ads will feature an animated world of people, nature, and paper products. The reference frames are accompanied by music and voiceover, which should help you imagine how the final videos will come to life. The spot opens on a shot of a quiet and peaceful forest. The camera travels downward as the trees sway gently in the wind. We hear breathing and see an arm gracefully move across the frame. We now see through the trees that a woman is practicing yoga down below. She moves from a warrior pose to a downward dog. We cut to a shot of a boxed carton of water. The woman takes a sip. The spot ends with the woman in a headstand, her boxed water sitting beside her as messaging appears on screen. So when it all comes together, it looks something like this.
America is home to thriving and abundant forests. And when forests are healthy, we are too. Because trees provide better air, water, and habitats for wildlife. They also provide paper. By using products that come from this natural and renewable resource, you're helping the planet. For the love of trees, choose paper and paper packaging.
So that's one of several ideas that we're testing. And we're looking for whether or not these kind of messages are believable. Can they make that connection between the abundance of forests and using forests go hand in hand? And does this get people interested in going to our website for more information? And so we'll get some feedback as to, whether they can connect the dots and whether they are excited to find out more information. The trick is we're trying to reach people kind of, again, where they live. And we know that wellness of all kinds is a really, really important topic. And we thought, let's relate, the wellness we all strive for in our life with, the wellness of the forest, and see if that's a good way in to have a conversation with consumers. So I will definitely keep you posted on that, but it's one of several ideas that, again, we're testing to get our story out in a simple but effective way. The other thing we do in testing is we spend a lot of time looking at language. And again, listening to your comments at the top of the meeting about working forests and managed forests and responsibly managed forests. We've done some testing. You can see this is a little research sheet that we put together about what kinds of words work well with consumers, both broad sustainability, planting language, and forest language. And we did this list probably about 1.5 years ago. And since then, we've learned even more and are now looking at additional words that can work hard for the industry, like regenerate, and even just using the word plant versus replant, renewable resource, protection, restoration. Some of these we played with a little bit, but adding phrases like earth-friendly choice, you heard that in our test commercial, planet-friendly packaging, flourishing, is that a word that people would identify with? Force. So there's a lot of different words that we spend a lot of time trying to finesse and fine tune like you all do to make sure we're really getting the message across clearly. And this sheet is available as part of a larger kit of sales enablement tools that I'm going to share with you in just a minute. And so you all are welcome to sign up for that kit, and you could get this sheet, and then we'll be updating it when we learn a little bit more, again, from this round of research that we're in the middle of. And I don't know if any of you have seen it, but Hewlett-Packard had put out an interesting ad at the beginning of the year from a very, very well-known advertising agency called Wyden and Kennedy. And you literally listen to the sounds of paper being printed in a copy machine while you're watching visuals of the forest. And so very interesting for us to look at the language they use, because we know they've probably done a lot of testing. And regenerating forests is one of several different words, in addition to sustainably managed forests and working forests. So restoration is another word that they use. So some of these we're picking up from not only our own work, but what other people who are doing really good work in our space, if you will, how they're doing it. And then I want to invite you all to listen in on a PPB sponsored day with Bloomberg Green, but there's a forest webinar in particular that's about 1.5 hours. It's on April 27th, I believe, and I will be sending Leslie and Rick a link so that you can sign up. It's free, and it's going to have these 3 dynamic women talking about really the economy of the forest. And so Rita Hyde is the new president and CEO of the American Forest Foundation. Ellen Jakowski, I just mentioned HP. This is the woman who's head of sustainable impact. And then Tensi Whalen, who was with WWF at one point, but is now a professor for business at New York Stern School of Business, and very much talks about the fact that sustainable can also be good for business and profitable. So again, really trying to get people to focus more on or a little less on deforestation around the world, and looking at us here in the US and the kind of model that you all are, for other countries around the world, when there are good, important markets for paper-based products, wood products, et cetera. So we'll send that along, and it's a much larger day. You can listen in to the whole thing, but we want you to be aware of this lunchtime session around forests and the economics and how to protect forests moving forward. And then I mentioned this at the beginning, but we are working with our manufacturers, our packaging companies, and their customers to explore putting a message on a top flap of the box, not on the bottom, where we really encourage people to empty, flatten, and recycle, because consumers might know that they're supposed to recycle it, but they don't always follow the right steps. And so again, trying to simplify that experience for them and make sure they take out things that are in the box before they flatten it. And then there's a QR code here. QR codes are really enjoying a bit of a renaissance. They never quite got off the ground about 15 years ago when people were just experimenting with them. And with COVID and restaurants getting away from menus and other products, thinking, how do we get people connected? COVID was a real technology equalizer. And so, people of all ages, really know how to use those QR codes, and you see them used in shows, popular shows like the Today Show, where they're promoting products and you can scan it with the TV, and you see them a lot more in print advertisements. So we're going to have one on the box, and that is a very specific tailored consumer journey into recycling with a lot of information about where your recycling goes. And really the whole premise when they scan it is they get a big thank you message for recycling, and then a did you know and some additional information if they want to stay with the app long enough. We did again, testing is really at the root of everything we do, and we did a lot of research on this as well to see if people understood what we were asking to do, and would they, would this be helpful in reminding them to recycle, and got very, very high marks on that. Whether they'd scan a code or not as many people said yes, but we thought 35% was still a pretty good number. And then we had comments about this treatment, like glad for the reminder. This company cares about the environment. There's such a nice environmental lift to the companies. Let's say it's Chewy's, the pet food company. If they put this on their box, they're going to get that brand lift in terms of sustainability. And so it's a really good partnership opportunity for us and our company's customers. And again, it's great brand lift for the companies that actually use it. So a lot of incentive to use that treatment to describe what happens to your recycling, and that you have to empty, flatten, and recycle. And then last thing I just want to leave you with is we do have sales enablement tools. I just mentioned that at the top, and I'm just going to call out too to give you a sense of what's available. But in the middle here is a sheet we did on sustainability overall. And we're in the process of updating these and revamping them with all of our new forestry work. But we have sheets like this that you can use with either in the classroom or with customers or whoever your audience are. It's very consumer friendly. And then they're also available in infographic form, and we even have some animated ones. This is a really positive outcome from some of our previous research where consumers really identified with this message that, we're an industry that nurtures trees and maintains healthy forests through our commitments to sustainable forestry. And so this is just a great reminder that when consumers are given good and positive information, they do feel better about our industry and our practices. So we just have to get it in front of them more often. This year, because we've been very, very conservative about how we spent our money during COVID, everybody was being careful. Nobody knew where it was going, right? We actually have some additional income that we can now put into the campaign to really launch this forest piece. The overall campaign this year will be $27 million. It's the second highest year in the 8 years I've been doing the campaign. And again, it'll be all around our, sustainability practices and good forest management. And then again, we often will animate some of these. And so this is another great statistic from our research about the fact that, when people hear and see good things about the forest, they find it very believable. So this is that it's renewable resource, and it's an environmentally smart choice. And then just the last thing I'll leave you with is there's a very big accountability piece to this program in terms of not only watching all of those sort of performance metrics that we have to watch every day, that's traffic to the website, that's results to an online quick 2-question survey when people are online. And then we go out and we track usually twice a year what consumers are feeling about our industry. And this is one example. We've been tracking this since day one. We'll continue to track it. And while we've been in the 50-point range in terms of people feeling good about our industry, plastics has declined quite a bit from 41 to 34 over the last 7 years. And so these are the kind of numbers that we look at. This is really kind of a reputation slide. What we want to do, though, is we want to get our favorability up into the mid to high 50s. We want to strengthen it. And so that's one goal of the campaign. At this particular measure, we had about a 54% agreement that we were, a very sustainable industry. And again, plastics has very, very low agreement with that, and it continues to decline. So it gives you an idea of some of the big picture things that we're tracking to see if we're making a difference with the campaign. Oops, here's the points. And then we also are talking with consumers in our research about whether they feel our products are part of the environmental solution. And we want to see that number stay steady or grow. It's already good, but can we get it better? We think our advertising will help us do that. And we find that expressives, that's the name we give our target audience, feel the industry is trustworthy. With 69% of that younger Gen Z, the ones that are a little bit more skeptical and unsure, feeling that industry is trustworthy. So that just gives you a feel for some of the kind of data that we have and we track, and we're happy to share that. We put out reports a couple of times a year, and you can use this to communicate with your audience. I think we have big challenges ahead. These legacy myths is what I call them. 51% believe deforestation is a significant issue, and we know it's not in the United States. And so I hope you noticed throughout all the communications this afternoon that we talked about America in the US, and again, what's going on here, in this country. And we could even talk about North America and Canada if we wanted to, but great story going on here. And so we want to make sure people understand that. They see our industry and our country as role models in the fight against global deforestation. And then we still have people who think that, trees are cut down in national parks to make products. And we all know that's not true. And so again, there are some things that we need to work on for sure. But you also can see from these numbers, those Gen Z are more skeptical, and millennials are very close as well. So we've got some work to do there. So that's what I have for you. Let me take this off of share, and happy to take any questions that you guys might have. And thanks for all.
And you can keep that on share if you'd like, just because I think people were interested in some of that information. The last slide you had. I just want to thank Marianne Hansan for presenting. We have a few different questions, so I'm just going to start with one that I think most foresters kind of think about. Does the difference between managed, even-aged forests versus more diverse, example like pine hardwood forests, do those resonate with consumers, or to the consumer, are all forests equivalent?
That's an excellent question that we actually have a question on in our survey that's out in the field. We looked at it more from the perspective of, is the word trees a more powerful motivator or a forest? And in what situations do those words work better? We didn't get to the level of calling out the specific types of trees that are used, particularly to make paper and boxes. So I don't know, and we haven't tested that. But we are looking at even just simply the difference between talking about forests and trees. And is there any difference in what consumers hear when we use those words?
Excellent. And would you mind sharing just that last slide? There was one question about, are some of your videos available for others to include in e-blasts or in other things? So I think, is this where they would find the information from the website?
Yeah, so so there's a couple things. If you go to How Life Unfolds, excuse me, if you go to paperandpackaging.org, that's our board site, paperandpackaging.org, you can sign up for our newsletter, which has all the different content we're running at any given time. And so 99% of everything that we're running is also available on YouTube, How Life Unfolds YouTube channel. So you can access it from there as well. But the newsletter is great because you can see, what the latest and the greatest is.
Excellent. And someone asked, what messages are there about substituting paper for the plastic bubbles inside boxes, and also for mailing envelopes lined with plastic bubbles? Someone's says, I've been getting both, and they could be shipped by more companies. And that kind of goes along with like someone asked about, getting more stores to use paper bags instead of plastic bags. So those little substitutions.
Yeah, well, we definitely are about, we have to be careful. I'll start there with a checkoff, because USDA, which provides oversight for the program, has, very strict guidelines about either lobbying or disparaging other products. So we got a plastic substitution message across in our recycling commercial, right? But we couldn't go out and personally take that issue on. And particularly the bag issue is tricky because that's been an issue in legislatures, as we all know, where we get lumped in with, these plastic bag mandates. So we have to be careful what we focus on. But what we do is, I did a blog recently. It's featured in our newsletter, by the way, but you can also find it on the paperandpackaging.org website. And I usually do at least one a month. And we featured the great innovation in bags that I believe Georgia Pacific had actually produced this one, and showing the different material. Then it wasn't a plastic liner. So the way we try and get at that message is by showcasing in our newsletter paper innovations that are often substitutes for plastic. And we do it more through the lens of information. So there's been a lot of change in the whole paperboard area relative to fruit, right? Fruit and paperboard and corrugated, are becoming increasingly used by fruit producers who want to brand their particular kind of apple, for example, that they grow, and they want better protection. And so that's where we're really trying to make sure our fuller industry, because our newsletter goes to a lot of people, so they see some of those substitution stories told through the lens of innovation. So that's how we're getting it across right now.
Excellent. We have time for one more question. However, as we're running into 2 minutes into the hour, I just want to share that for those of you who want continuing education credits, just want to make sure that to complete the workflow in the webinar. So you're going to go back to complete the webinar, and just want to remind people that we have more webinars coming up in this series, and that you can access all of them in the forestrywebinars.net on the Keeping Forest page or through the Keeping Forest website. But I'll finish up with one more question here. So there was a question about, where is the data behind the trends data for paper recycling and other messages that you have mentioned today?
So they come from a couple of different sources. I mentioned we do twice a year what we call an ANU, an attitude and usage tracking study. So that's a primary source. We also use the work of the Recycling Partnership. They have a great report on the state of curbside recycling in the US that you can download off of their website. AFMPA also does some work in this space. So we definitely, beg, borrow, and steal from all of our, fellow trade associations, but we've done a lot of work ourselves. We did a consumer study on recycling and found that they were happier. It was a date killer if you were dating someone and they didn't recycle. And so we've done some fun stuff like that to really generate, positive media. So we have, the kind of the hardcore, tracking stuff. And then, we have some of the lighter stuff we do to get media. And then the creative research is yet a whole nother set of data that we have, where that one spot I showed you is one of several that we will ask consumers what they're thinking about relative to their ideas about recycling, et cetera. So, but again, our newsletter is really good about showcasing, the different types of things we have available. And I really encourage you to sign up for our sales. We call it our sales toolkit. And it's just we take the best of our best data and we put it into infographics and other types of materials. So, and it would be absolutely free. There's no charge to use it. So I'm going to be forwarding the Bloomberg link to you all through Leslie and Rick. And then I'll also point out where you can sign up for our newsletter. And then I'll give you where you can go to sign up for the sales enablement materials. They're in the process of being updated because we have a lot more forest information that we haven't had a chance to include yet.
Great. Well, I just want to thank you so much, Marianne, for presenting today. I think we all learned a lot and about some things that we just don't really get to think about in the forestry world necessarily from that angle. So thanks again, everyone. This recording will be available at the Forestry Webinars portal where you first join the link, and it will be also posted on the Keeping Forest website as well. So thanks again, and I'll let everybody go and move off from here. So.
All right, thanks everyone.